Hello happy crocheters, this is Lindsay from windingroadcrochet.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make these cute little acorns that you can use for a variety of projects. For this project we're going to need a very small amount of yarn. I am using a tan called Buff and a brown called Cafe Latte. It is a lighter brown than what I use on my samples, but I thought it would be easier to see in the video. It is Red Heart Super Saver size 4 medium worsted weight yarn. You're also going to need a yarn needle, scissors, and a size E 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. So we're going to go ahead and get started. You want to make a slip knot, but make sure you have a good 6-inch tail because we're going to be making a magic circle. I make this very differently than others, but you can make the magic circle however you like. I'm going to insert my hook and wrap the yarn tail around my thumb to make a circle. Now we are going to work 4 single crochets into the circle that we've made. For this part of our project, we are going to work in continuous rounds. So I'm making 1, 2, 3, and 4 single crochets into this loop that I've created. And then I'm just going to pull that yarn in tight. Now continuing, we're going to work round 2. For round 2, we are going to work 2 single crochets in each stitch of round 1. So round 1 had 4 stitches. We're going to increase in every single stitch, and that will leave us with 8 stitches for round 2. Since this is such a small project, I'm going to wait a moment before I add a stitch marker. So we are working on round 2, and round 2 is just working 2 single crochets into the next 4 stitches for a total of 8 stitches. After finishing round 2, I am going to use a bobby pin because I cannot find a stitch marker, and I'm going to mark the last stitch of the row. That is going to help tell me where this row ends. So now for round 3, we are going to work a stitch pattern. We are going to single crochet into the first stitch and then work 2 single crochets in the stitch after that. And we're going to repeat that stitch pattern a total of 4 times. And at the end of the row, we will have a total of 12 stitches for round 3. So I've worked a single crochet in the first stitch, and now I'm working 2 single crochets in the second stitch. Then to repeat, I will work a single crochet in the following stitch, and then 2 single crochets in the stitch after that. So every other stitch has an increase. And you will just repeat the stitch pattern until you reach your stitch marker, or in my case, my bobby pin. I have finished round 3 and I'm just moving my stitch marker to the new last stitch of the row. You'll notice now that we have a little bit of a point being created. For rows 4 through 6, we are just going to work a single crochet in every stitch around. So in round 4, I'm just going to single crochet in every stitch around, and then I'm going to repeat that process for rounds 5 and 6. So here I am at the end of row or round 4, just moving up my stitch marker, and then for row 5 and 6 I'm just going to single crochet around. And that's just going to give us a little height to our acorn. Once you've completed your 6th round, we are just going to fasten off. I'm going to clip my yarn over and pull through the last loop on my hook. We are going to have a little bit of a jog here. I'm not going to stress about that because we're going to put a cap on this acorn that will hide it. Just take your yarn end and we're going to stuff it in the middle. I'm not using any polyfill for this little project. We're just going to use the yarn ends to stuff it. So let's go ahead and make the cap for this acorn. To get started, I am using my darker color. I'm going to make the acorn stem. Just going to make a slip knot, insert our hook. We're going to chain 4. The pattern says 3. Either way works. But for the video, I am going to chain 4. And then I'm going to work a slip stitch into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chain from the hook. So going into the 2nd chain from the hook, we're going to work a slip stitch. Going to the next chain, we're going to work another slip stitch. And in the last chain, we're going to work a slip stitch. Now we are just going to fasten off. And that is the stem for our acorn. We're just going to yarn over and pull that last yarn end through the loop on our hook. And there is our little stem. Now we're going to make the cap of our acorn. I'm going to make a magic circle. I do this by making a slip knot first with a long yarn end. And then since we're going to work with double crochets, I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 now. Again, you can make your magic circle however you like. This is just how I do it. I'm going to wrap that yarn end around my thumb to make a circle, and then begin working double crochets into that circle that I've made. When working your double crochets, you should go into the circle working under 2 strands of yarn. You're going to work a total of 12 or 13 double crochets in this magic circle. The original color I used was thicker than this yarn, even though it was the same brand, and I only used 12 double crochets. But since I know this color is thinner, as a thinner yarn, I'm using 13 double crochets. I also want to mention that that chain 2 for me does not count as a stitch. So I'm going to pull our yarn in tight to close up the circle, and to finish up round 1, we are just going to slip stitch to the first double crochet of the round. For this acorn cap, we are working in joined rounds and not continuous rounds. To start row 2 or round 2, we're going to chain 1, and we're simply going to single crochet in every stitch around. So if you worked 12 double crochets, you should have 12 single crochets in this round. If you were like me for the video and did 13 double crochets in your magic circle, you'll work 13 single crochets to work all the way around. When you get to the beginning of your row, you're just going to slip stitch to the very first single crochet. After the slip stitch, I'm just going to fasten off, leaving a good amount of yarn in, maybe about 12 inches or so. You can use this yarn in to sew the cap onto the bottom of the acorn, or you can use some hot glue if you like. That's what I did on my samples, but for this video, I am going to sew it in place. So now we're just going to take our hook, and going through a few of the stitches, we're going to pull the 2 yarn ends of the acorn stem into the center underside of the acorn cap, and we're just going to knot these 2 yarn ends together, and that is going to secure that little stem to our acorn cap. You can clip these yarn ends a little bit if you like. I am just going to stuff them into the acorn, but if there's too much, you can always clip them down. Now, taking that very long yarn end, I am going to thread it onto my needle. I'm going to move that yarn end up to the, I am just going to thread this yarn end to the bottom of the single crochet row. It's also the top of the double crochet row. And then take all of our yarn ends and stuff it into the body of our acorn. If there is too much, feel free to clip some of those yarn ends away. And then just place our acorn cap on top of the body of the acorn. Now pinch the 2 pieces together with your fingers, and we're just going to go and sew the 2 pieces together. You'll notice I'm not sewing right at the edge of the cap. I want to have that have like a little lip to it. I am sewing at the very top of our double crochet row on the acorn cap. And then I'm sewing into the very last row, row 6 or round 6 of our acorn body piece. And we're just going to sew that all the way around. Once you make it all the way around, go ahead and just weave in your yarn end. You want to go back and forth about 2 to 3 times. Then I'm going to feed my yarn in all the way to the bottom of the acorn. I'm going to pull on it pretty tight, clip the yarn, and then as it loosens up, it's going to hide that yarn in the center of the acorn. So there you have it. This is our cute little acorn. Now I'm going to show you a few different projects I've used this acorn for, but you can use it for any kind of fall project you have in mind. So I have been using this acorn for a lot of different projects. I used it for a decorative belt to put over a dress. I've attached it to an ear warmer. I've tucked it into a wreath. I put a bobby pin on the edge of the acorn and tucked it into my daughter's hair. This acorn is also beautifully sized to be a little accessory to my gnome patterns. So you can use this acorn in a lot of different ways. I really hope you enjoyed the video tutorial, and as always, thank you so much for watching.